So guys, welcome back. You might realize that we're kind of in a different environment than I usually shoot in. I was actually allowed by the owner of the store to shoot and review something that they have in stock, and possibly more things in stock. So, while digging around the store, this was found. A vintage Sony's receiver. This one is labeled a Legato linear FM stereo FM AM receiver. It's the model STR-VX6. And make sure I didn't get that wrong. Nope, VX6. So, I did test this and it works. It's kind of neat. I do like these older, like early 80s, still keeping some of the 70s aesthetic of silver plate receivers. One thing I did try to find out, which I didn't find out at all from trying to research this, is what Legato linear meant. From what I could tell, it might be marketing, but it might also refer to something internally to deal with sound reduction and noise reduction with the radio. I didn't go into too much detail trying to research it, so if anybody knows what Legato linear meant, please let me know in the comments. If not, it might have just been a branding thing. So before I do plug this in, one kind of neat feature was you actually could slide out this little piece on the side, and if you wanted, labeled each one of the radio stations you pre-programmed. You can see there's a little slot there with a little hole, so that way you can kind of just tug it out. This unit's not too heavy and not too big. There's the side of it. Here is the rear. So nothing too crazy. We have the antenna. We also have antenna inputs for AM and FM. If you want something a little stronger. In my region, you might need that a little bit. And then we have two AC inputs or outlets. We have two sets of speakers you can use on it. These do have the older versions of speaker connections where you just slide it in and then you screw this in and out of place to hold the speaker wire in place. Then for inputs, we have phono input, an auxiliary input, which is just a standard stereo RCA. We have a tape recorder loop and then a second tape recorder loop. And this one can be used as a preamp or power amp. There is an AM channel space switch on the back. I'm not sure what that's for. I am not interested in pretty much any AM radio in the area or in most places. And I think most people in general these days don't listen to unless you listen to like conservative talk radio. Label on the back tells us the model number, the info. This one was made in Japan. It doesn't seem like it has a made by date. So I'm not sure the exact manufacturing of this specific unit. What's kind of neat is there is a sticker on there for the Stereo Barn. That is a business that was in PA locally that closed down, I think, a while ago. Not sure exactly when, but it's kind of neat to see where it came from at one point. So to kind of illustrate this and make sure it's clear, because I know someone might ask in the comments below, like I said earlier, you just kind of take speaker wire. I don't have these labeled. They shouldn't be too thick. And then you just kind of run it in to these after they're unscrewed enough. Make sure it is kind of slim enough. This is kind of thicker speaker wire than I think most people were using back in the day. But if so, just trim it down, find some looser speaker wire, thinner speaker wire that is. Just kind of screw it into place. Make sure it's plenty tight, so that way there's a good connection and it doesn't pop loose. And we're going to swap it around. To start out, we're going to be using these speakers, which I use for pretty much every video just to keep kind of consistency of comparison, because it's slightly out of frame. These are the SS-M50Ns, I believe. I actually did a video on these before. I'll link it below in the comments. So we'll attach both of those. Alright, now that everything is in frame and plugged in, let's turn her on. And there she goes. So we're going to turn A speakers on, which is what I believe I plugged those into. Switch it over to the tuner. And I'm not going to play that for too long, just because I don't want to get a random DMCA for listening to the radio. But the tuner works fine. We do have the phono inputs for both MC and MM cartridges. I will not be showing off the phono stage on this video, just because I don't have a turntable ready to show off both. But I will say that I've tested the phono stage before and it works. We're going to switch to auxiliary. We're not going to really mess with the tape copying either. We're just going to work on some of the other buttons and what they do, and then seeing the treble and bass and if they work, and then I'll mention a few other things. Alright, to make this kind of consistent and then also use something that won't get me a DMCA, we're going to be listening to some Dan Mason while I mess around and kind of display this. show it off and put it through its little paces. So, Dan Mason, again, if I mentioned multiple videos, he's an artist that lets you use his stuff as long as you don't, you know, claim it as your own. So, it does seem like there's a little bit of noise that might need cleaned out on the balance knob, but it does swap between the left and right channels properly, so that's good. The bass controls work. So do the terrible controls. Now you have all the buttons to record the radio stations or to program, preset them. Memory scan, AM, FM, manual tuning, standard stuff. Tuning level muting. We're not going to go in depth on the FM radio because radio is more and more dead in my region. There's only a few FM stations and there's nothing I can play without being a DMCA. We have the 2 tape copy loops, which we won't be fully demonstrating in this video. Then we have subsonic. We have a mono and stereo mode, which for the few people that don't know, if you're younger, mono is just 1 speaker, and then stereo would be 2 speakers or a left and a right channel versus 1 channel. Mono mode just mixes both of those into the same mix for both speakers. So if it's something that's stereo, it'll mix it down to mono, which isn't too complicated. We do have the loudness setting, which I am going to kind of mention. Some people don't seem to understand it. Loudness is a button to kind of make this music louder, but you're not supposed to do that once it's loud. It's supposed to be for when you're listening quietly at home on the lower volumes, but you need still a little more audio. It is not recommended to crank this all the way up and then put loudness on, since you could blow something. Then we do have the MM load for the cartridge. We're not going to be messaged with today. I've tested the headphone jack as well. That works fine. I've tested the B speakers before. So this unit's working. It was just tucked away in the store, kind of forgotten until I found it. So if anybody's interested in buying one, this might be listed through the store's Reverb soon enough if I don't get it myself. One other neat resource that I have available at the store is there's the old Orion Blue Books laying around. Here's an audio one from 2003. Although this is 2003, I don't need it so much for that year's dates and pricings average for this receiver, but it will have information for me on the original price of the receiver and what year it came out. I was able to find it, the STR-VX6. I might need to zoom in later on it, but it looks like this unit was made between 81 and 83, like I said, so it was an early 80s unit. And those prices don't look quite right. I don't think it was $670 brand new, but it might have been. And then at the point of 2003, it was going for very cheap. If I recall while looking it up, it's definitely going for over $100 in good condition now. Now while I'm here at the store, we will do something kind of stupid or fun. I'm going to plug in another pair of speakers laying around the store. These are my standard A comparison speakers that I've been using for all these videos since I kind of started doing the audio stuff over a year ago. We're going to play them for a little bit on this track. And then we're going to swap over to another pair of higher end speakers, since these were technically made with a mini hi-fi unit in mind. with that as a reference, we're going to swap over the speakers to something a little better. So you might realize, or you might not know or know what these speakers are. These are KEF LS50 Metas. There's some pretty nice bookshelf speakers, and probably the best ones, I say, at least in the store, available for me to easily grab and hook up to the setup. I don't really have any Sony equivalents to these at all, in general, in my life or personal collection, the Sonyphile collection, whatever you want to call it, or in the store have I seen ones locally and probably who knows when. So we're going to pump the volume back up to where it was, play the same track about the same length, and go from there as an example. So I think that gives a pretty good idea of this receiver, what it does in general as far as basic stuff goes. If you see in the wild, if you're interested in vintage receivers this era, I do like it myself. Hopefully this gives you an idea if you like it and if you'd pick it up for yourself as your own little unit. That's about it for the overview. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you were interested in watching more stuff like this, I will be working on more videos, so please consider subscribing. Checking out my Patreon if you want to. Please help support me on working on my hobbies and interests. And that's about it. I do thank you guys. I hope you all stay safe, take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.